Well, back in the early 60s, the life in Soviet Union was very tough. I mean, and I mean that, okay? The stores were empty. I mean, there were stores for everything, but they were empty. You could go to empty shelves. But everybody's concern was with survival, okay? Politics was, nobody even thought about politics or other countries, okay? The name of the game was survival. I mean, the story told about the buns I was bringing. Okay? As a kid, I mean, I knew we need to eat something, okay? There needs to be food. The machines, the bread machines, it's all about food. There was no extra income for celebration or, you know, movies or birthday parties. The people were not concerned with that, okay? They were concerned about surviving. So my mother was a teenager. She was going to high school. My father was going to high school, kind of late high school. Somehow they met up, and back in, I believe, 1951, they got married, okay? I was born in 1954. Life in Lithuania as a child was interesting. It wasn't exotic, okay, because if you remember that it's the time was 1960s. Weather was not very exciting, but I know that my parents every summer they used to rent a room at the house with some other friends in the woods, and that's where I was. And my parents would commute to work from the woods. So it was like a 3 or 4 bedroom house. 3 or 4 families would get together. Everybody would get a room, and we lived in the woods for about 2 months. Okay. In the winter, snow was everywhere. I mean, it was cold. It was really cold. I mean, I remember that we had 2 doors, 2 levels of doors to go in and out of the house. And the outside door, if you would touch the handle from the inside without a glove, your hand would stick. Okay? Seriously, the hand would stick. Okay? Heating the house there was no central heating. There was nothing like that. We had, inside the house, we had one coal oven heater that was heating up 2 rooms. And the challenge was to bring in the coals. Every day we had to bring like a bucket of coals. So we had, in the winter, we would service, apparently they would bring in the coals and put it in the basement, fill up the basement with coals, and barrel by the door that would fill up like on the weekend with multiple buckets of coal, and then every day we'd bring in the coals from the bucket, from the barrel into the house. So it was from the basement with the coals to the barrel, from the barrel to the house. But we had 2 basements. The other basements were keeping the potatoes. Okay, and again, a truck would come in the middle of the winter, dump a truckload of potatoes into the basement through an opening through the window, and then me as a child, my job was to go and bring in potatoes in a bucket back to them when we needed some food. I don't remember much of a social life as a child, okay? We had our own yard where all the kids lived, okay? I only had one birthday party when I turned 7. I mean, in fact, years later I told that to Tammy, my wife, and I told her when I was like 35, and immediately that year I got a party. So I had the gap, 7 to 35, I believe, okay? Parents were busy working. I mean, life was tough, really. I mean, it's like you see in the movies. I mean, the joke was that if you go walk on the street and you see a line, people standing, first of all, you stand in line. Doesn't matter what it is, okay? Stand in line because somebody is giving away or selling something, because the stores were empty. You go to stores and stores really, I mean, had no inventory of anything. So you have to have connections of getting things, you know. And my father, before I was born actually, he was going to med school. He wanted to be a doctor. And the leader of the Soviet Union then, Stalin, and I believe it was 1953 that he claimed that the Jews, the Jews trying to go out and kill him. And he essentially went and fired all the Jewish doctors from all their positions. And anybody that was in med school and was Jewish, kicked them out from med school. And that was my father's end of the career as far as trying to be a doctor. My father, he was kicked out of med school. He always liked writing. So he was the correspondent of a Jewish newspaper in Lithuania, and he was writing for the Jewish newspaper.
What language did they use back then?
Multiple languages. Okay. He was writing primarily in Yiddish. Okay, but the spoken languages at home were Yiddish among the family members, Russian, and Lithuanian. So when I was growing up, I spoke 3 languages fluently, and then I studied English at school. Really, and I want to mention that when my parents enrolled me in school, they enrolled me in a Lithuanian school, and the logic was that if we're never going to go leave United States, the Soviet Union, I might as well know the local language well, because the Russians are not going to stay there forever. And it's interesting enough, it took about 40 years and the Russians left. But my father said, they're not going to be here forever, and if we're not going to live here for Israel, you might as well know Lithuanian fluently. And if we're going to leave, it doesn't matter, because you're going to learn a new language anyway. So on the street, however, I did speak Russian with my friends. At school, I spoke Lithuanian. At home, I spoke Yiddish. And then the school was a good school, and it was an experimental school that they decided to teach children a foreign language, as if I didn't have enough, starting 1st grade, okay? And they enrolled me in a German class. My father heard of that, went to school, said, no way my son's going to learn German. The Germans killed my family. I want him to learn English. So they moved me to a different class, and I was studying English from 1st grade, essentially. So years later, when we went to Israel, I came to Israel knowing 4 languages. Okay, Lithuanian today is not a language I speak anymore. Russian, I dabble barely, since the only person I speak to is my cousin Sam. Yiddish, I speak with my mother once in a while. So from 4 languages, I basically dwindled, 5 languages, I dwindled down to 2. So I can manage 2 languages, to the Hebrew and English primarily. And by the way, I think that's a tragedy of the entire Russian nation, is survival. That's because they drink so heavy. There was never lack of vodka. Shelves empty, bottles of vodka everywhere, okay? And the entire Russian and Soviet nation was drunk most of the time. They would drink themselves to death, to forget themselves about problems. I remember once I was in the hospital for removal of, what do you call this? Tonsil removal, okay? They kept me there for a week. Okay, talk about traumas. And there was a family there that were kids telling me about the parents that are always drunk. Okay, the parents were in the hospital because they were brought down to intoxicate them. It's horrible stories about. If you remember, I believe it was 63, 62, the premier of Soviet Union, Khrushchev, came to visit United States. Okay, one time happened back in the 60s, and what really impressed him at that point was that U.S. is big on corn. We grow corn here, okay? And he figured out that we in Russia and Lithuania and Soviet Union don't need to grow wheat. We can grow just corn. And he issued the directive that no more wheat, we're switching everything to corn. Well, but how much cornbread can you eat? You want some wheat bread, but everything was corn. There was cornbread, okay? And it was bad bread. shortage of bread because people didn't want to eat cornbread all the time. So what they did for the children, they organized that they would bring buns every day for the children at school and sell. Every child could buy a bun, a wheat bun, not corn bun, okay? And because they wanted to feed the children, so the children had some wheat. So the first day, I came to my teacher and I said, her name was WWII. I had her for 4 years, okay? And I said, Mrs. WWII, I have a question. You know, we have 40 kids at school and we get 40 buns, but sometimes kids don't show up to school. I mean, can I buy their bun? He said, sure, I don't see what's up. You know, I see why not. So we had an arrangement that every leftover buns I would buy and bring it home. So we had fresh buns at home every day, essentially, okay? And another thing I remember from school is when Kennedy was assassinated. I came to school and the teacher said, okay, just so we know, the president of the United States was assassinated. His name was Kennedy. Everybody looks at it. We have no idea what that is. I mean, so what? And what does it mean? Oh, there's going to be war. You know, people are going to retaliate. We don't know what that is. But there was some stress. But I remember the day when I came to school and it was announced that Kennedy was assassinated. Now, we're not hungry, okay? I have to emphasize, we had enough food to eat, okay? But it wasn't like a selection you open up. There was enough basic ingredients you eat and you're not starving to death. There was chicken. I remember there was chicken. Meat, I don't remember meat, but there was chicken, there was fish. I don't remember meat, actually. I mean, I think I had my first steak when I was probably 20 years old, something like that. I mean,
when you were
20, you know. There are some dishes that they are considered Lithuanian dishes, okay? For example, sweet herring with raisins. Can you imagine that? I love it. Okay, I love it. Sweet herring with raisins. I mean, this is just a dish that nobody else does it anywhere else, okay? And but by and large, the diet is chicken and potatoes. Chicken and carrots, chicken and potatoes, chicken and carrots, okay? That's a diet we had there, okay? And I was pretty chubby. I mean, I was on the heavy side, probably even heavier than now, okay? I'm not light right now. So yeah, life was interesting in Lithuania as a child.